So, how's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Jacks podcast. Today, we're going to do book club number 3. I've not got the book with me, so I will put it on screen here. But the book that I want to talk about today is Mindset by Carol Dweck. Now, Mindset is a book that was recommended to me a while ago. It's a book that I read, I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm going to go into some of the points about it and why it had such an impact on me and why I remember it not so vividly. I'm not going to be able to recite it verbatim. We're going into the points that I do remember and what benefits and positives it has and what I think will be beneficial to the everyday individual. I will go through them points that I sort of remember, what I've jotted down. And I'll also go into the negatives of the book and what I think, not that could be better. I think the contents within it is fantastic. It's brilliant. It's so in depth. But again, it comes back to structure of books, and we'll get into it in a little bit. But yeah, we'll start with a sort of a brief summary of what this book is about. And mindset, well, you probably guessed it, is about mindset. But it talks about 2 states of mindset that we as individuals fit into. And it is rather the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. So going into the fixed mindset is, I think people, when they've heard about this or they've ever spoke about it, they normally think of quote unquote the underachievers in life, and it's not that. It's not that at all. If you read the book, the fixed mindset is predominantly about people who think, skill, intelligence are fixed, and you've only got so much in the tank of these things. You look at it and you imagine that people who are very good in school, very clever, or very good at sports when they're younger, you see these people that really excel at a young age, and they think, oh, I've been dealt a really good hand. And when they get older and they face new challenges and more challenges, and the competition becomes better, or the material of the tests and the education becomes more difficult to grasp, these people then start to become less interested, blaming external factors rather than internal factors. We've all seen it. We've probably all done it. I've definitely done it in certain avenues and chapters of my life, and thought 20% shorter, maybe a bit more. But that's me. Some people might read it and be like, oh my God, more, give me more. And I really, really like Carol Dweck and how she explains things better than me when I'm doing now. But she's a really good talker. She explains things very simply. When you think about a book about psychology and mindset, I reckon that could be daunting to a lot of people. And they'd be like, oh, fuck that, it's just going to be all dissertation and references and things like that. And it does have that element, but it's not that. It's not down your throat too much. It's a bit like Atomic Habits and how James Clear does it. Maybe more, just a touch, sprinkle more sciencey. But then again, James Clear's book is brilliant and very research backed, but maybe in a different way, which will be what I do next, probably. Atomic Habits, the best book about habits, the reason that I'm doing all of this, for sure. But going back to mindset, I'd recommend it to anyone. I'd recommend sort of checking it out. Don't have to read the full book. You can listen to her TED Talks. There's very good summaries on YouTube and synopsises knocking around where you probably will just get the core and the meat of what these 2 mindsets are. I've tried to do it for you now in a very compact way, because this book took me a while to read. Not like the Count of Monte Cristo. It's like a three-month read if you're as slow a reader as me. But if you've not got time and you just want something that is snappy and does the basics, then something like what I'm doing now and things on YouTube will give you that information. But that's it. Quick one from me today. Just wanted to get it in. Just wanted to get it out. I've not been feeling particularly well, so if I do sound a bit croaky, a bit raspy, I apologise. That's why there was no podcast last week, just because I sounded like a lawnmower. So I didn't want to make these dulcet Wigan tones any worse for people who put themselves through this. So thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, leave a review. That helps massively, more than you could ever think, for the growth of the podcast. Check out my website, www.jackmckeenan.co.uk. Blogs on there, exclusive offers with these guys, Vertical Strength. Shout out to them. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast, giving the opportunity to continue to do this. Some of the best fitness gear, the bags, brilliant. Use them every day. Check them out at www.vertibalstrength.co.uk. Code AverageJack for a good discount. Check that out. And yeah, we've got some guests lined up. Hopefully get them out to you soon. Again, trying to get out into the world, different people from different walks of life, and trying out a bit of new equipment. This is where I've got this fluffy little thing on my neck. So hopefully it sounds good, looks good, some new lighting. Yeah, slowly but surely we're trying to get better. Growth mindset, progress, ongoing. Take it easy, team. Look after yourself, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace. Oh well, bollocks to it. I'll just give up. Sort of show lack of interest and stop challenging yourself because you're worried about what people think. And that is a fixed mindset pretty much to a T. I mean, you can Google it and look into it, but I'm pretty sure that you would get a similar, description of what I've just said there. And going back to what I said, when you hear people talk about it, they think about people who, give up easy and they're not they're adverse to challenges. I'm thinking like your quote unquote underachievers, but in this book, it explains that there was a study of these fifth graders in America, and they were doing these puzzles, and they were set these puzzles that they could pretty much all achieve, and they were given praise, and like they said, you're just really smart, like you can do this and you can do this, and within this group, they made the puzzles harder and harder and slightly more challenging, and the group of kids that were praised and told they were really smart and you did this well and you did that well, once these things became harder, they just stopped caring. Like they just gave up. They were too bothered about looking silly or looking stupid, and would just lose interest. And now on the other side of that, you've got the growth mindset, which going to this study that they're referring to sort of give you a segue into it. The kids that weren't praised heavily based on their accomplishments and the fact that they were completed. They were saying like, you can be better if you do X, Y, and Z, if you stick to systems and you practice and you do this. The kids praised for trying and failing and understanding that failure isn't a bad thing were the ones that showed more interest, were more keen to attempt these harder challenges. I think that in the book it sort of goes into it and says that some of these kids were going to the teacher and asking, oh, where can I get more of these things to go home and ask my mum to buy them so I can be better. And I think as I got older, that was only a mindset that I probably only came across and then became conscious of and mindful of, was through listening to this book. And when you apply that and you start to begin to understand that failure isn't the be all and end all, and if you do fail, actually it's more beneficial to you than succeeding every time. And that's what this book sort of encompasses, and it's like, push yourself to that, out of that comfort zone, and demand more from yourself and get into that mindset and understand that your abilities can improve with effort and with learning and putting yourself in situations where you don't know the outcome and you're unsure of what it's going to do, and you're going to have to require brain activity and brain power to navigate it and learn. And there's a really interesting study, and I watched Carol Dweck's TED Talk, which we'll get into in a minute, which is brilliant. I would recommend it. I think it's about 10 minutes long, but she showed these like brain pictures of someone with a fixed mindset and someone with a growth mindset, and the brain activity of which both these mindsets have. And the fixed one was the activity was super low, not really firing any of firing all cylinders on the brain. But then you looked at people with a growth mindset, and like the activity was off the charts because the brain's working. It's learning how to activate itself more and use more of its capabilities during challenges. And it's just super interesting to think. You probably don't realize that you are a fixed mindset person, because going back to like school and things like that, we are very much chastised, punished for failure. And again, a study within this book, it talks about a university in America. I can't remember the university, so I'm not going to attempt it and lie. But there's a university that when people say they need 10 modules or 10 grades to pass their year, and some of them exams are at the beginning of the year, they don't say to these people that you failed. They say the grade is not yet. And they've done with studies and research and proved that when they tell someone that they've not failed, they've not fucked it up, and it's irreversible, they've just not got there yet. There is still time to improve it, redo it, and go again. That the outcomes are just miles better, so much better. And you think, like I can think about it, but you as an individual, think about the times that you was at school and you failed an exam, or you did bad on a mock, or you didn't quite get the grade you was hoping for, and like you get bollocked off it by someone saying, "Oh, well, it's not good enough. It's not this. It's not that," and that sort of instills this fixed mindset in us that failure is sort of this bad thing that we should avoid. When in reality, when you get older, you start to understand that it's not. Failure isn't great, and it's not something that we should be necessarily happy with. But it comes back to the relationship of what we have with failure. And I think what this book does very, very well is explain that we need failure to be better, and we can take a lot away from our failures and then apply what we've learned into our mindset to grow, to be, a better person. And some other points that I've raised here is, I think I've missed probably a not a big part, but a part that the book talks about early on is core beliefs. And all this stems back to what we believe about ourselves and our own narrative. And I'm reading a book at the minute called Cybernetics, which is pretty much all about this and the relationship that we have with ourselves and our own narrative. You say it enough and you believe it. So imagine if your internal monologue is that is negative towards yourself, and you're listening to that every day on repeat, just, not even probably conscious of it happening, and it just being there chipping away minute after minute, hour after hour. You're not this, you can do this, you can do this. That will ruin you. It will just ruin your confidence, your self-esteem, your belief about yourself. So this is where it comes back to, on the podcast and when we talk to people, and what I've talked about is having that mindfulness and being able to sort of connect within and look internally, look intrinsically, and be able to talk about yourself in a positive way, highlight what you do well, give yourself that reassurance. And it's not about necessarily being like an egomaniac or a narcissist. It's about having a healthy relationship with yourself. And when we talk about core beliefs, our beliefs about our intelligence, how we look, how we feel, if you repeat that narrative of that you are this and you are that and you can never be, you will create this fixed mindset where it becomes unchangeable. It becomes such a massive task to change that. But it can be changed. And this is what that book says. But it's about understanding the issues with a fixed mindset and then the positives of a growth mindset and being mindful. And then resilience is a word that I don't like to use a lot because I think it gets used for the wrong reasons, the word resilience. I think when we think of resilience, we go back to, running on broken shins and doing things we really hate. And resilience, which I probably will talk about in its own episode at one point. It is that. It is a factor. It has some of that in it, but it's not just that. You know, you think about people who have overcome illnesses and sickness and really hard times where they've not had to, you know, physically break themselves to overcome it. Are they not resilient? Are they not resilient people? Of course they are. Resilience, like everything, has many shapes. And when they talk about resilience in the growth mindset and how the growth mindset fosters resilience in things like leadership, personal development, and education, like it's about having that adaptability and being ready for the unknown and being resilient to that, being prepared and not having the fixed mindset. I mean, like, oh shit, this has happened. I'm just going to go in my shell and avoid this adversity and deny myself the opportunity to prove to myself that I can do it and I can do this. And I think the sort of the important things that I've taken from this book, and it's been a while since I've read it. So again, like I said when I first did this, I don't really want to go back and not read the books. I'm not being lazy, but I think books hit you at certain points in your life, and I feel like I'd like to do this first from what I remember initially, and then probably go back and read them at a later date and see how my relationship changes with the different points of my life. But some other things, and talking about, you know, Dweck's TED Talk, which is brilliant, which is about not yet, and goes into, you know, the study, which I might have muddled up with the TED Talk in the book. But anyway, it's still Carol Dweck and it's still about mindset. So not yet, it like embraces the idea that setbacks are temporary and process is ongoing. Going back to like that university that instead of saying someone had failed, they just said, you're not there yet. And it's providing them that understanding that if you keep going, you will eventually get there. And that's super important with everything we do. I mean, you look at the gym, you know, the gym is probably one of the things in life where we fail so regularly within it to progress, but we don't have negative connotations to it. Like there is no negative association with going in the gym and doing 12 reps on bench press at 42 kilos and shaking like a shitting dog for the last 2 reps and having someone to spot you and drag you through them reps. You'd be like, yeah, fuck, that was tough, but it was good. I got the pump, I can feel it, I can do this and I can do that. But you've had assistance and you've had help. Like, imagine if, you know, another scenario where you wanted to do something and you had an end goal in mind, but someone come and assisted you for the last 20%. A lot of the time people would be probably get the backs up about that. So taking the not yet mindset that probably a lot of people do have in the gym but just don't realise it, and transferring that into everyday life would be so beneficial, in my opinion. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not just chatting shit, but in my head, I get what I'm saying. So I hope you do too. So going into there's not a lot of negative about this book. There's not a lot that I don't disagree with any of it. My issue with the book is something that I mentioned in Book Club 1 when I did my book, and why I wrote my book, and why it's very short and brief and digestible, is that this book isn't necessarily that, but it's not meant to be that. It's not meant to be, you know, snap information and, you know, you just get through it in a day. It is she's one of the leading psychologists in the world. There's so much scientific research within the book. It's so well backed that of course it's like that. And it should be like that. But for me, even though it should be like that and it has that, I feel like once you're about 6 or 7 chapters in and you've got the premise and the foundations of what the fixing the growth mindset is, the examples then going on then onwards are just regurgitating the same information with just different perspectives. You're sort of getting the same outcome, but just different avenues. And I probably loved the first 40-50% of this book and didn't struggle with it and didn't feel like it was laborious or hard work. Same thing, but the last half, I was like, yeah, I know what this person's got. This person's fixed mindset, this person's growth mindset, this person's fixed mindset, this person's growth mindset. So I feel like it could have been